Good morning, everyone. I just had a little bit of an error that popped up that I hadn't seen before. And welcome to our new our webinar, Introducing RiskyProject 7.2. My name is Michael Trump, one of the partners here at Intaver Institute. Weirdly, I had a job anniversary that popped up. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, so it's been here for quite a while. Very strange. Anyways, and being gone through all the way from version 1 up to 7.2 over that first period when we first released in 2004. So anyways, today we're going to be going through most of the major new features in RiskyProject 7.2. Before we start, though, I just want to go through what we call housekeeping, which is just basically how you can interact, obviously because your microphones are turned off. If you're on your audio, again, if you can use mic and speakers, that's always that you'll get. If you have questions during the webinar presentation, you can type them into the questions pane that you should see on the side there. Again, we will, if you have technical issues, you can't hear me, something's gone wrong with the screen, I'm pointing in the wrong direction, or something like that, we will try and address those right away. Otherwise, any questions answered at the end of the session, a QA. Now we're going to get through here fairly quickly, just because I know that everyone's time is pretty valuable. So this is pretty simple. I just want to provide some context into what we were trying to do with version 7.2. We always do have some goals and objectives, and a lot of times we end up going sideways on some things as new requirements or new requests come in. But we have three main objectives in this one. Primarily, we wanted to provide some more flexibility, customization of views and reports. You'll see this in the new dashboards and the risk form and some filtering and sorting that we have in the views. Second, we wanted to improve our risk management capabilities, and primarily that focused around mitigation planning. Lastly, we looked to put in some new capabilities on the enterprise. Obviously, the enterprise is based on the desktop software, so anything that's done in the desktop software is reflected in the enterprise version. But we wanted to add in some new capabilities in terms of organizational structures and reporting and user management. And as we go through, though, with the exception of maybe looking at the dashboards and the updated UI, unless I'm asked specifically, we won't do a live demonstration just to keep the webinar down to a reasonable time. So this is just looking at the new improved UI, sort of the updated interface. There aren't any really dramatic changes, as one of our key design principles is to follow the Microsoft Office standards as closely as possible. And the reason for this is that almost everyone is familiar with the basic navigation conventions found in Office applications. And we hope that this minimizes the learning curve for our new users. And if we put out a new version, we don't want to suddenly people have to sort of create what we call a new mind map about how does the application. So we do want to make sure that people who've been using it before won't run into any problems, and also for new users that they will already have a set of standards that they're used to, and they should be able to pick up the application fairly quickly. However, We did put some new colors and icons, which were sort of in line with what you're seeing in the new Office applications. On the workflow bar, we've put in a different color. The icons are different sizes, and one change in that is that you can there's a shortcut menu on there that you can disable or enable different views in the workflow bar. So if you're not using some, you can shorten it up or add ones that are not being shown. All of our grid columns in the views can now be filtered or sorted, as similarly as you might find in Microsoft Project. So if you want to filter, just look at activities with certain parameters or names or durations, you could sort your views based on that. In addition, we do also updated the performance on our chart rendering and view rendering. So the reaction you'll see in the UI should be a little bit quicker in terms of when you switch views and everything. The redraw should be a much faster than in the previous version. So this is coming into some of the bigger changes that we've had that took a while to get developed. This is a customizable project dashboard. It replaces the project dashboard we had in the previous version. I put the the new dashboard on the left there, and on the right we've got a smaller version just to fit it in, so you can see the two different versions. The one big thing you can see on the right, running down the side, is there's a bunch of icons. Those are all the different data and objects that you can add to it. Again, we basically recreated much of what you have in the previous dashboard, but it can be customized. All the colors can be changed. There are some sort of vivid colors, but a lot of that is just as a testing, just to see what we can add, what the capabilities are in terms of providing backgrounds and text and font colors and whatnot. This allows you to create your own project dashboard with the metrics rather than what we chose to hard code. You can create your own metrics and KPIs, etc., all being pulled out from the analysis at your project level. We also have reproduced the same capabilities in the customizable risk dashboard, which will be available in the risk workflow that you'll find in the risk register. And again, I've just given a comparison of what we had before, which is hard-coded on the right, and on the left, again, we have this dashboard that we put in, and roughly has recreated what we have in the previous one again, but it can all be customized. And my plan is just to go in and take a look at that so you can see how we can customize, how these can be customized and to meet your particular needs. Again, you can see the drag and drop controls on the left, which represent text boxes, different charts, different KPIs or indicators. I think there's 138, but I might be wrong on that one. But it's around there in terms of indicators that you can get on the risk dashboard. And again, provides a lot more flexibility, and it's much more visible in the interface. Whereas our dashboard before, it was just accessed by a little button up at the top left, the risk register. This is now a view unto itself. Let's move on. Another piece that we did sort of improvements around the Monte Carlo simulation, just a little bit more customization, is adding a new most likely field. So typically when we create a schedule or you import it, you can bring in the 3-point estimates, but it's based on the deterministic schedule that you have in your scheduling tool or that you've developed in here. You can now shift that deterministic to a most likely. So if you think that the deterministic schedule that you've received is too conservative or too optimistic, one of the two, you can actually shift what is used in the statistical distribution. That can be, it can be imported, it can be manually entered, it can be calculated based on the deterministic in the set low, high, duration, or cost dialog boxes, or you can set that in the uncertainty bands. On the cost chart, not a big change, but we've put in the ability to see low or high results. By default, the low and high are P10, P90 in the project, set in the project options, but these confidence levels can be modified in the project options calculation dialog box, just as you would if you're looking at any of the other views in there. So we can now see there. And one of the things on that low and high is that because you're right at the edge of the boundaries we've got this high one at P90, there's not a lot of results, so it sort of fills in there. So it gives a little bit of a line in there where there's lots of values. So all of those points that we're seeing in there where the returns came in on the probability when we ran the simulation. But so you can switch back and forth to see what your mean, low, or high on the cost chart. One of the other things that we've been trying to do is coming to finding ways that we can simplify or manage very large projects. As what we found is projects have become much more complex. As the tools have become more capable, the hardware is faster. What we in projects that have much more complexity, many more activities, or you've got master projects that have thousands and thousands of lines. One of the things that we've done is to be able to create what we might call a master project with subprojects. What this allows you to do is to run analysis on smaller subprojects within your master project and insert the results of those Monte Carlo simulations as an activity that can be linked to other activities within a larger schedule. And so what this allows you to do is run a Monte Carlo simulation relatively quickly on a very, very large program and get the basic parameters that we want to get out of it in terms of maybe of schedule and cost, and pull those results out. But you will also be able to get all the results out at the subproject level, as those you can just open those up and you'll get those in there as well. And so that will, instead of having on one of these, some of these very, very large schedules that run over 50,000, by using this process, you can shorten the time. And again, one of the things that you're able to do is you'll get from the subprojects, you'll get a better feel for what the where you're most sensitive at, because what happens when we run on very large, complex project, very hard to get valid sensitivity analysis if you're looking at where are the places that you're looking to manage your project at, because there's so many activities, you get an incredible amount of what I would just call white noise. So this is one of the new features that we put in there, along with something that was added in 7.1, which was schedule consolidation. Previously, we used to have integration with a utility called StatFit, which required, I think there was a free version, but also had you might have to buy a license for it. So it wasn't a free app. I don't believe it was a free application. What we've done is being able to, if you have empirical data for task duration or cost in Excel or a text, you can use it to generate a custom statistical distribution for activities in your schedule. You can import the results of the analysis performed on other software, or use project control data that you have from similar projects or activities. Now we're moving into the section just on risks. One of the issues that we've had over time is we developed, when we had our initial risk form, I think it was called risk properties at one time. It was based on a 2006 DoD specification, had a lot of fields in it that a lot of people, some people would ask, what does this mean? What do objectives or assumptions, or there was particular fields in there that they didn't use, weren't used. It wasn't specific enough to their project. So what we've done is we've turned that risk form. It's now customizable. It's not quite in the same manner as the dashboards, but it can be customized. So it's basically as much as required, as little as possible. So if people are entering in new risks, you can put in there, and you can make mandatory fields, but you can have it as much as you want in there, and again, like as little as possible. And again, this is the default view. You can use the default view as your template, and then you can remove or add fields as required. One of the other, we call it, we put in another view within the risk management. It's called the mitigation assignment view, which allows you to help you define and edit mitigation plan assignment to different risks. As opposed to the mitigation response view that we have, this has a much more detailed fields and data that can be tracked for each mitigation plan, including information for risk probabilities and all impacts for individual categories such as schedule, cost, technology. All of those can be brought in. The new mitigation helps you define and edit mitigation plan assignments to different risks. And it will show how the risk and probability and impact will reduce over time due to mitigation efforts. So you can bring them in. You can view the modified dates. So if we're looking at it, there's some custom fields that you can put in there. Dates, description, probabilities, impacts, all associated, can be brought in here. Now, if you have existing mitigation data, and we'll show a little bit later, all of that can be imported. And when it gets imported, it's going to be imported into this view. So you have a much more substantial ability to review your mitigation plan, see what's working, what isn't, and be able to track planned versus actuals in this view as well. So as part of that, we updated what data that can be imported for risks. And so in addition to the normal, we had the import risk from Excel. We can now import risk mitigation plans from Excel, which will go into the mitigation assignment view. And we also have status updates. And the reason for we had that is that we do have clients who are adopting this the risky project in progress, or they've had previous projects that they want to bring data in about risks that they might have that are at an enterprise level. And so what we've done is we've added 2 different additional imports for different tables that we, different data structures that we have. Mitigation plans can be, if you have mitigation plans, all of those can be imported into the project. So you have risks with their mitigation plans. And if you have some historical data about the risks, how they've been updated over time, or risk reviews or things like that, they can all be brought in, and they will be imported into what we call the risk status updates. And the changes in that will also be reflected in a much more shortened or discrete, if you want to say, view in the history, risk history. This was an interesting one that we did. So one of the things we've also done is been in the plan, in the works for many years, that we wanted to be able to put in. We just never seemed to find the chance, is to be able to link mitigation plans to tasks. So one of the endpoints that we like, when we're doing quantitative risk analysis, is once you've done your planning, you want to put your risk burn down activities or mitigation plans into your schedule. And each one of those will have a duration. They'll have resources, who's in charge of it on your schedule. Costs might be involved in that as well. And those can all be linked to your mitigation plan. So all of the data, including planned and actuals, will all be linked to your mitigation plan automatically, and will be updated as you move through your projects. That activity, if you have a planned date for that risk burn down activity to occur, and it slips because of the whole schedule is slipping, that will be reflected actually in your risk mitigation actuals, and you'll be able to chart that. And obviously, if your mitigation activities are behind schedule, then that means you're probably over budget, over schedule at that time. So it's always a very good marker of how you're doing on your project. So once you go in from a qualitative, have your risk plans, you go into the quantitative risk analysis, you're putting your final schedule with those risk burn down activities. They can be basically linked now between that risk mitigations and your schedule. Now at the enterprise level, one of the things that we've worked hard on over the last, and it's not quite covered in here, is building the organizational breakdown structure, an OBS. It's created in the user management, and on the right here, what we can see is our users that we have in the system, and here is our organizational breakdown structure that we've created. And they can also include security groups. If you have, we've got integration with Active Directory that can be set up and can be read into the system. once that OBS is set up, that links into the project permissions, who can see what. And if we go over, and what we're doing is we're looking at the risk register right here, and at the top right corner, you have now a selection, and you can see risks now become a property, or the organizational structure, whichever level that is a property of the risks. So you can assign risks to different organizational structures that you have, and you can then filter on that based on that. And obviously also the users, because they have can be assigned to certain organizational breakdown, the organization. They will only we're in an admin view here, but if you have particular users, they will only have access to those risks. They can only view or update or modify those risks that they can, in that organizational structure that they're a part of. So if they have membership in that, they'll be able to view them. They won't be able to see any of the other risks that are in the system. The other part in the enterprise is the ability to create multiple risk matrices with different properties, such as number of cells, colors, labels, scoring, and save them in a risk matrix depository. And what we can see at the top here, which is sort of just with this light red highlighting, is we can create different risk matrices, and each one can be assigned to different, can be assigned at different levels of the organizational breakdown structure. So if you have different, or if you have different groups within your organization that require or need different types of risk scoring, different matrix requirements, that can be set up so each one has their own way. A lot of times it could be for those groups who are doing quantitative versus qualitative, really depending on what their requirements are, and that can all be set up within that risk matrix depository. One other thing in the qualitative that's shown in here that you might not have seen before, or if you've done, is that we have these scoring. Now, normally if you have a risk scoring, it's going to be that impact times probability, 4 times 5 equals 20. You can now, if you have a different scoring method that you would like, depending on risk land, you can override that by entering in your own values on there. So if you want these to be, let's say, because you have an impact that's higher, let's say if you wanted to, you could enter in 22. So any risks that land on your risk matrix, instead of being 5 times 4 equals 20, you could override that and say we want that to be 23, or 22, or 24. So that adds a little bit more as we've experimented and looked at different systems out there. If you have your own that goes a little bit, takes into account, let's say that probability is or impact is more has more weight than the probability, you can change that a little bit and override that basic 4 times probability times impact risk scoring method. And lastly, in the enterprise, we can also create, like with the risk burn down activities, we can create mitigation projects. So if in your portfolio you have many projects, you can create projects that are mitigation plans that are linked specifically to projects. So those projects become basically mitigation projects, which can include basically activities and well, it can include everything that you could have normally in a project. that can be tracked as part of your mitigation planning strategies that you have in your when you're managing your project portfolio. So just going to do a quick check to see if we have any questions at this point. Okay. We just have one, but we can answer that at the end. So what I want to do right now is just to quickly go in, and I'm just going to do a quick overview of the dashboards. If something starts we'll just go right to here. So here's our dashboard. And I'm just let me minimize this. So this is the project dashboard. You can reach it up here on the across the menu on the report project dashboard. Many years ago, it used to be called the 3x3 dashboard. And this is just a basic recreation. And we can see these on the side here. These are our drag and drop controls. Different applications if we want to put in here, or different objects that we can put in. If we wanted to take a look at and edit something, we can go up here. Oh, sorry. You can edit the text if we wanted to flip that back and forth. And editing is just typing in there. We want to change the color, basically bold and the font can all be changed. And it's simply just on selecting those. If you wanted to start from scratch, or you could just go, you can go in here and let me just find that. Oh, I think I might, that's what I did. So you could clear the dashboard. I'll go to dashboard settings. Let's say we want to do, let's go give a white background. And you could start from there, and you could just start from scratch, drag application. This is a edit format text. This is why I don't like doing these sometimes on here. But you can add a text box. You could then add your, oh, that's why it's did that. It's not a, and I can go properties. What kind of properties? Sorry, that I thought it was a text box. That's my bad. You can see all the KPIs. So we have so risks and all their parameters. So if we select that, then you could go and look at this. We wanted to look at number of risks, cost of risk, reviews. All of these have KPIs behind there. If we wanted to put in a bar chart, risk matrix, all those can be dragged across. Sorry, this was the text box that I wanted to put there. If you wanted to put in text, we'll put in a line and we'll put a solid fill of white. So we're just playing in here, and okay, close. And oh, there we go. And I'm just going to delete that. You could start to build it up like that and then start dragging it across. So it's fairly, it takes a little bit. Whenever I've done it in the past, One of the other things, you can create 2 different views of that dashboard. If you wanted to have multiple dashboards from the same project here, you could do that as well. If I don't like this, I could save it as default, or create standard dashboard if you want to. And so what's going, the standard dashboard is the default that's set. And so we can go back to there. For my purposes, I always find this is a good starting point. If I wanted to change it, I could start just to go in and say, I don't like the background. I go to dashboard settings. I want to go, I like a white background. And I do want to have that. I can go edit format text, but I want that as black and perhaps a little bit bigger. And you can start to go through, and again, the good part about this, it has all of the text boxes in here set up, and then you can look at these fields, you go properties, what is that? We can see that right here, but we can start to change, and it might be a better starting point as you want to develop a project dashboard. I'm going to, we'll just go back to the standard dashboard. The same thing is in the risk. We have that if you look up here on the risk dashboard here, you can click either one and that brings it up as well. The one major difference on here is that we have just put this GIF, which is part of our splash screen that we use. Again, you could, if you didn't want that in there, you could add images. You could put in your company icon in there as well. And again, you can also add it, you can add different views on this. On the risk register, we're looking at this. This is the customizable dashboard. It's a little bit, works a little bit differently. To open up the editing view, we click that. One of the differences, obviously, this is, if you click on something, you can bring that. These are text boxes. If we click on this, the property that's behind there, whatever that is, represents, is brought up here. So this is the open and close property, but we have all these properties, particular on those ones. If we wanted, that's the open close risk life cycle. Same thing will happen here. What is this? And this, I think this is a risk statement, risk description. Assumptions, all of these can be brought in. You can see what they are. And whenever you click it, you can see this up here, what the property it is. Again, we've generally recreated the form, but again, you can add or subtract anything you want if you want to make it as a there we go. You can make fields mandatory. You can also add probability impacts. So if you want to add, instead of using the assigned to tasks or resources here, you can add, if you're doing it qualitatively, you can add in fields up at top, and you can add probability and impact. Again, just another way that we can allow our users can customize, simplify, or add details that are not built in these hard-coded views that we've had. And one of the other things you might have noticed is that the from previous, and then we just publish it, and it's from the previous version, is that the risk information dialog box is much, we've increased the size of it, so it gives a little bit more room when we're looking at some of the other views in here, particularly on this scientists. So it gives them more space on here, so we can see more of the assignment if we wanted to view those as well, because that was a bit crowded in the previous versions. So these are sort of, and we've increased the size of several dialog boxes just to provide a little bit more space and ease of navigation through the system. So with that, I'd just like to go, I'm going to go back to I'm just going to finish up here. We do have one question. Actually, we have a couple questions. So I'll just, I'm going to look at them in the order that they came in. Where can I get the link to the download? It's live on our site. So the version, this version is available from our website right now. So if you go in, it says get your trial version. It's the same. The trial and the full version are the same. It's just a licensing, whether you once you activate the license or enter the license in the system. So you can download it from our site. Go to get the trial. Put in your information and select. One of the things is we're no longer supporting the 32-bit version in this. We just haven't had any 32 versions, so it's all 64-bit versions. And you can just download the professional or the light version from there. At the time, is there an option to change a risk reference key from the risk name to, for example, risk ID? Not now. The reference for the risk mitigation and the risk status updates can be used. We can use the risk ID or we can use the risk ID or the risk name. But for at the risks right now, risks, we weren't able. That was one of the things we weren't able to build in. That we just didn't have enough time to be able to make that change because it's a central key aspect of how the whole risk data structure works right now. So it's still a unique, we still need a unique risk name in the system until until we have another update that comes out and we're able to get that into the system. There's doesn't look like we have any more questions. So if you're interested, if you'd like to have a more comprehensive demonstration, please give us a call. You can go to our website, www.intaver.com. My email, mtrumper@intaver.com or sales@intaver.com. Give us a call. Send us a note and we'd be happy to set that up. Other than that, thank you very much for everyone who's shown up. We are recording this and it will be available on our site within the next 3 days. We'll have it up and posted if you want to review it for later. And again, I recommend if you're so inclined, go to our site, download the latest version. You don't have to get the 7.2 license right away. You can just go in and take it in trial version, and you'll be able to do an evaluation of the new features, see if they are a nice fit for you. For 30 days, you can always ask for an extended evaluation license if required. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from you.